Hello, my name is Brady and I'm the Education Specialist with Down Syndrome Ireland. I would like to welcome you to this presentation on numeracy, acquiring basic maths skills. This is one of a series of presentations that are now available on the Down Syndrome Ireland website. When we plan a maths curriculum for a child with Down syndrome, we must ensure that, first of all, the learning outcomes we choose are feasible for the child. We must ensure that the activities and tasks are manageable, that they're relevant to the child's capabilities, and that they're realistic, that underpinning it, we are trying to provide for appropriate skills for the future needs of the child. In addition to being manageable for the child, we also need it to be manageable for the resources we have available, for the resources we have at our disposal within our classrooms or in our schools. When we look at target setting, we have to realise that Down syndrome in itself is not much value to us as we try to set targets for a particular child. More relevant to the setting of targets for a child in the development of their numeracy is the extent of their number vocabulary, their ability to enumerate, to count, their level of understanding. Will they understand the task that they are being given? It's important also to remember that the child must be motivated to learn. And of course, we always have to address the fact that children with Down syndrome are visual learners, so therefore we must ensure that our targets include that aspect. How should we teach? Particularly for children with Down syndrome, we need to recap and revisit. This is vitally important. We need to address the fact that we should not assume that children will have the key mathematical terms automatically. Some children with Down syndrome will need to be taught these as a specific skill. And there's an opportunity here for pre-teaching in the resource setting. As we teach, we need to direct the children in their practice. So teacher instruction and directed practice for the child go hand in hand. Once the child has become competent with practicing and manipulating under the teacher's instruction, they can have some independent practice time. And it's important that at this point, we would always give the child positive feedback. Remember, it is important that attentiveness is there, that the child is paying attention during practice. This is crucial. It's even more crucial than the amount of time we spend doing something. Regular practice in small doses would be particularly beneficial and is likely to be much better than a 2-hour session once a week. There are stages in the process that need to be followed as we teach basic maths skills. They are counting, stable order principle, Cardinal principle, the Abstraction principle, and the order irrelevant principle. And these are the same for any child, not just for children with Down syndrome. Counting then, well, initially, children need to learn that counting involves pointing to objects individually and giving each a number name. That's what counting is. Then to the next stage, which is teaching the stable order principle. It's important that the child comes to a realization that counting the same set of objects several times will always give the same result. So no matter how many times you count the 4 counters on your table, you will always have 4 counters. The Cardinal principle ensures that the child becomes aware that the final number of a count represents the whole group. And it is very important here that following any activity such as this, we always ask the question, how many? So the child counts 4 counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we follow up by asking, how many? And the child answers us that there's 4. So therefore the final number of a count represents the full group. The abstraction principle follows that, and it illustrates that the number of objects in a set will remain the same, however they're arranged. They don't change. So if we move the counters around to the other side of the table, or we have different colour counters and we put them into a different order, it doesn't matter. There will still be 4 counters if we start with 4 counters. So no matter how we arrange them, the number stays the same. The final stage is that the number of objects stay the same no matter what order we count them in. So we start at the end of the line of counters, we start in the middle, we move them from one side of the table to the other. It doesn't matter what order we do that in. The order is irrelevant. The number will stay the same. So that's where we get the order irrelevant principle from. To develop these principles, practical activities need to be used. And in developing practical activities, we need to progress along a specific sequence. It's very important that we follow a sequence, both for our planning and for a proper development of the child's numeracy skills. The sequence is as follows, as you see on the slide. We start off all the time sorting and matching like objects by colour, by size and by shape. And this is typical of a junior infant curriculum in numeracy. So we match the red balloons. We draw lines between the blue teddy bears and so forth. A lot of children rote count anyway, and they have no idea what it is they're counting. Very young children will count to 10, but they have no concept of what it is they're actually counting. But this is important to develop the ability to rote count from 1 to 10. We can start then by counting up to 10 objects in a row by rote counting. Underpinning all of this, it's important that we, from the very start, we associate numerals with written words, with the spoken words, and with the appropriate amount. So the number 2, we would say the number 2, we would write the number 2, we would let the child see it written, and we would have 2 counters, or 2 teddy bears, or 2 butterflies, or 2 lollipops, or whatever. A typical display on a number chart would have these aspects. From there, we move to selecting up to 5 objects from a set of 10. So we would start with 1. We would ask the child to pick 1 counter, moving to 2, 3, 4, and 5. At this point, we do not progress beyond 5. We then develop an ability to match numerals, to match written numerals between 1 and 5. We ask the child to pick us out the number 4 from a group of written numerals. Then we get into the practice of sequencing numerals in the correct order and sequencing amounts in the correct order. So does the box that has 4 pencils come before the box with 5 pencils or after the box with 5 pencils? Then, from a group of numbers, the child selects the correct number. So you ask the child to pick you out the card that has the number 4. this card would be just a numeral. It would not have any visual prompts. And then we progress to labelling the amounts 1 to 5 with the correct number, leading to the child actually writing numbers 1 to 5 as they either draw groups of 5 items or 4 items or 3 or 2, or they put the number under groups of items that are already provided for them on a worksheet. At this point, we repeat steps 5 to 12 on the previous slide, and we use the numerals 1 to 10. We also start to counting from left to right, and we start to make sure that materials are organised so that the child can count them accurately. Moving then, simple one-digit addition, always using concrete materials to back up the process. We move on then from counting up to 10. Once the child has knowledge of the numerals 1 to 10, we start to count objects to 20. We also introduce some simple subtracting. One digit, for example, 4, take away 2. Again, ensuring that we have 4 counters and we take 2 from them, that we're not just giving numbers on a page. Vitally important that the child knows numbers 1 to 5 before progressing 6 to 10. If the child does not know 1 to 5, they will certainly not know 6 to 10, and they will certainly not learn 11 to 20. So vitally important that the child knows the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, as they say, backwards, upside down and inside out, before we progress to the introduction of numbers 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Many children with Down syndrome encounter difficulties with numeracy, and these are often due to problems with storing or keeping track of numbers and sequences of numbers while they're further processing the next steps. Due to this, mental maths and times tables can be particularly difficult for children with Down syndrome. So to improve numeracy skills, what should we do? Vitally important to always reinforce numbers visually. Number lines, number cards, possibly 100 squares as the child grows and goes up through the school. It goes without saying that concrete materials must always be used. Counters, lollipop sticks, etc., etc. It's useful too to teach the child to associate a number with a particular image or a particular colour. It can help their memory. And of course, if we choose, we can decide to use visually based mathematical schemes and equipment. For example, Numicon or the old style Cuisenaire rods as an additional resource for our teaching. And in this regard, do check out the additional presentation that's on the website on using Numicon as a resource. As I said at the beginning, this is one of a series of presentations that are available for you on the Down Syndrome Ireland website. The presentations are relevant to both teachers and parents alike. I will be presenting the green list and my colleague Nicola Hart will be presenting the red list. It might be worth also, as well as looking at the Numicon presentation, do also have a look at the presentation on literacy and numeracy at primary school, which gives some additional information on acquiring numeracy skills. Our contact details are on this slide, as well as the website address for Down Syndrome Ireland. And please feel free to contact either Nicola or myself at any stage by email if you have any queries going forward. As always, I would like to acknowledge the work of Professor Sue Buckley, whose knowledge and research and work over the years inspires my work with Down Syndrome Ireland every day. Please do have a look at our website and have a look at the resources and the presentations that are available there for you. Bye for now.